Hey guys, tonight we begin with something both grand and intimate. A journey not to the Senate floor or the Colosseum's blood-soaked sand, but to the cobblestone streets, the cramped apartments, and the daily rhythm of ordinary Romans. We're stepping into an empire that stretched from Britain to Mesopotamia, yet was lived one sunrise at a time by millions whose names history never recorded. Tonight, we're asking, what would it really be like to live just one quiet day in the Roman Empire? So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Welcome to Rome. The year is 150 CE, during the reign of Antoninus Pius, in what historians will later call the height of the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. The empire is at its territorial zenith, stretching across 3 continents. Trade flows freely, wars are distant. The machinery of empire hums along with bureaucratic precision. But you're not an emperor. You're not a senator draped in purple-striped togas debating the fate of provinces in marble halls. You are not even a wealthy merchant counting coins in a villa with a view of the Forum. You're a plebeian, a commoner, one of the multitude who make up the beating heart of Rome, the million souls packed into a city that groans under its own weight, magnificent and suffocating all at once. Congratulations, you've just woken up in an insula, a multi-story apartment block that's part tenement, part fire hazard, part vertical village. Your home, if you can call it that, is a single room on the 4th floor. No elevator, obviously, just a narrow, creaking staircase that smells like a mixture of cooking oil, human waste, and resignation. The good news? You have a roof over your head, which in Rome is not a given. The bad news? That roof leaks. The walls are thin enough that you can hear your neighbors arguing, coupling, coughing, and occasionally dying. Privacy is a concept reserved for the wealthy. Here, life is communal by necessity, not choice. Your bed is a simple wooden frame with a straw-stuffed mattress that's seen better decades. No springs, no memory foam, just lumpy, rustling discomfort. A threadbare blanket lies across you, wool that's been washed so many times it's more suggestion than fabric. Dawn is breaking, not because you can see it. Your single window is tiny, more of a ventilation slot than an actual window, but because you can hear it. The city is waking up. Carts rumble over cobblestones, vendors shout, dogs bark, a baby cries somewhere below. Rome doesn't ease into morning, it crashes into it, loud and unapologetic. You sit up, rubbing sleep from your eyes. Your back aches. It always aches. Sleeping on a Roman bed is like sleeping on a wooden rack with a thin layer of hay between you and spinal damage. But you're used to it. Comfort is for patricians. The room is small, maybe 10 feet by 10 feet, and it serves every purpose: bedroom, dining room, living room, storage closet. In one corner sits a small wooden chest containing everything you own: 2 tunics, a cloak, a spare pair of sandals, a clay lamp, a wooden bowl, a spoon, and a knife. That's it. That's your worldly possessions. There's no kitchen. Cooking in an insula is technically illegal because of the fire risk, though that doesn't stop some people from trying. But you don't have a stove anyway. You'll eat out, like most Romans. The city is full of food stalls, taverns, and bakeries. Dining at home is a luxury you can't afford, both in terms of space and resources. You swing your legs off the bed, feet hitting the cold, uneven floor. No heating, of course. Rome in winter is cold, and these thin walls do nothing to keep it out. In summer, the room becomes an oven, trapping heat and the smell of 1,000 unwashed bodies living stacked on top of each other. You stand and stretch, joints popping. Through the thin wall, you hear your neighbor already moving around, muttering to himself. An old man, a retired soldier if the stories are true, who spends most days sitting on the staircase, reminiscing about battles in Gaul and complaining about his knees. From below, the sound of a domestic argument rises, a woman's voice, shrill and exasperated, a man's voice, defensive and tired, then the crash of something, pottery maybe, and a child's wail. Just another morning in the insula. You move to the small window and peer out. The street below is already busy. A cart loaded with amphorae, large clay jars likely filled with wine or olive oil, is being maneuvered through the narrow street. 2 men shout instructions at the driver, who ignores them. A stray dog noses through a pile of refuse. A woman leans out of a window across the way, shaking out a blanket, dust motes catching the early light. This is Rome. Not the Rome of monuments and marble, though those exist, gleaming in the distance. This is the Rome of crowds and chaos, of noise and grime, of survival and stubborn persistence. You breathe in the morning air. It smells like baking bread from a nearby bakery, mixed with the ever-present scent of smoke, sewage, and humanity packed too tightly together. But you're alive. You're here. And today, like every day, you'll navigate this city, this empire, this life. Because you're Roman, and Romans endure. First things first, you need to get dressed. Not that this is a complex process. Roman fashion for the common man is refreshingly simple. Tunic, belt, sandals, maybe a cloak if it's cold. That's it. No buttons, no zippers, no decisions about which outfit to wear. You own 1 tunic, sometimes 2 if you're doing well. Today, it's the one you're already half wearing, having slept in it because, well, warmth. The tunic is made of undyed wool, a coarse, itchy fabric that reaches just above your knees. It's held in place by a simple belt made of rope or cheap leather. The belt serves a dual purpose. It keeps the tunic from flapping around like a sail, and it creates a fold of fabric over your waist where you can tuck small items, a few coins, maybe a scrap of bread. There's no underwear, not in the modern sense. Romans didn't really do that. Some men might wear a sublegaculum, a kind of loincloth, especially if they're doing physical labor or athletics. But most days, it's just you and the tunic. Breezy, efficient, occasionally embarrassing in a strong wind. Footwear is equally straightforward. You have a pair of sandals, simple leather soles with straps that crisscross over your feet and tie around your ankles. They're not comfortable, They're not waterproof, but they're better than going barefoot on Rome's filthy streets, which are an obstacle course of cobblestones, animal dung, discarded food, and things you'd rather not identify. If it's cold, and it often is before the sun fully rises, you might throw on a cloak. Yours is a simple rectangle of wool, fastened at the shoulder with a cheap bronze pin. It's seen better days. The edges are frayed, and there's a stain near the hem that you've given up trying to remove. But it's warm, mostly, and it marks you as someone who's not completely destitute. Togas? Forget it. Those are for citizens with status, for official business, for senators and magistrates. The toga is heavy, complicated to put on, requires help to drape properly, and a pain to wear. It's also expensive. A toga is made from a massive semicircle of wool, and good wool costs money. You've seen togas. You've admired them from a distance, but you'll never own one. And honestly, you're fine with that. Tunics are practical. Togas are theater. You glance down at yourself. Tunic on, belt tied, sandals strapped. Good enough. In Rome, unless you're attending a wedding, a funeral, or a meeting with someone important, no one cares how you look. The city is too crowded, too busy, too indifferent. You're just another body in the flow. But there is one thing you do care about: hygiene. Not because Romans are naturally fastidious, though many are, but because filth in a city this dense is dangerous. Disease spreads fast, parasites are common, and social shame is real. Smell bad enough, and even your friends will avoid you. So before you leave your room, you do what you can. You have a small clay bowl and a jug of water fetched yesterday from the public fountain down the street. You pour a little water into the bowl and splash your face. Cold, bracing, slightly effective at waking you up. You don't have soap, not the modern kind. Romans use olive oil instead. You pour a small amount into your palm and rub it over your skin, working it into your arms, face, and neck. Then you scrape it off with a stirigil, a curved metal tool that removes the oil along with dirt, sweat, and dead skin. It's not pleasant, but it works. Your hair is another matter. You run your fingers through it, trying to tame it into something presentable. You don't have a comb. Those are for people with money. Your hair is short, practical, cut every few weeks by a tonsure, a barber who works out of a stall near the forum. It's not styled, it's not fashionable, it just is. Shaving? That depends. If you're young, you might let a bit of stubble grow, fashionable in certain circles. If you're older or trying to look respectable, you visit the tonsure for a shave. But razors are expensive, and many barbers are more butcher than artist. Cuts and nicks are common. Infections happen. Some men just grow beards and call it philosophy. Today, you decide to skip the barber. Your stubble is fine. It's not like you're meeting the emperor. You check your reflection in a small polished piece of bronze, one of your few possessions that could be called luxury. It's tarnished, and the reflection is dim, but you can see enough. You look tired. You look Roman. You look ready to face another day. One last thing. You reach into your small chest and pull out a leather pouch. Inside are a few bronze coins, assi and sestertii. Not much, but enough for food and maybe a cup of wine. You tie the pouch to your belt, tucking it under the fold of your tunic. Theft is rampant in Rome. pickpockets work the crowds like artists. Keep your money hidden, your hand on it, and your wits about you. You're dressed. You're clean, relatively. You're as ready as you'll ever be. Time to step into Rome. You descend the stairs of the insula carefully. Each step is uneven, worn smooth by years of foot traffic. The wooden railing wobbles under your hand. Somewhere above, you hear someone coughing, deep and wet. Somewhere below, a baby screams. The stairwell is narrow and dark. The only light comes from small windows at each landing, barely enough to see by. You pass doors on every floor, most of them closed, some ajar, offering glimpses of lives compressed into tiny spaces. An old woman sits in one doorway, grinding grain in a stone quern. She doesn't look up. On the second floor, you pass a group of children playing some kind of game with pebbles and chalk marks on the floor. They shout and laugh, oblivious to the grime and chaos around them. One of them, a girl with tangled hair and a too large tunic, looks up and grins at you. You nod back. In the insula, everyone knows everyone, at least by sight. You reach the ground floor and step out into the street, and immediately you're hit by Rome. The noise is overwhelming. Vendors shout from their stalls, advertising bread, olives, garum, fish sauce, the salty, fermented condiment that Romans put on everything. Fresh bread, baked this morning, best in the district. A man selling vegetables waves a bunch of wilted leeks at passers-by. Another hawks used sandals from a blanket spread on the ground. Carts rumble past, wheels grinding against cobblestones. Drivers curse at pedestrians. Pedestrians curse back. A donkey brays, refusing to move despite its owner's increasingly creative threats. The smell is just as intense. Baking bread, yes, but also roasting meat, frying fish, human sweat, horse dung, urine from the fuller's workshops where cloth is cleaned and processed, and the ever-present background scent of sewage. Rome's sewer system is impressive. The Cloaca Maxima is an engineering marvel, but it's not perfect, not even close. The street is narrow, barely wide enough for 2 carts to pass. Buildings loom on either side, 5, 6, sometimes 7 stories tall, blocking out much of the sky. Laundry hangs from windows, wooden balconies jut out precariously. Everywhere there are people, walking, talking, arguing, selling, buying, existing. You step into the flow, letting the crowd carry you forward. Navigation in Rome is less about choosing a path and more about finding openings, slipping through gaps, and not getting trampled. You've lived here long enough to know the rhythm. Move with confidence. Don't hesitate. Don't make eye contact unless you want to buy something or start a fight. A man bumps into you hard. He doesn't apologize. Neither do you. That's Rome. Personal space is a fantasy. You pass a thermopolium, a fast food shop, with a counter open to the street. Large clay jars, dolia, are embedded in the counter, filled with hot food, stew, porridge, lentils, sausages. The smell makes your stomach growl. You haven't eaten since yesterday afternoon, but you keep walking. You'll eat soon. First, you have somewhere to be. As you walk, you notice the usual cast of characters. A beggar sits against a wall, hand outstretched, reciting a practiced plea for charity. A prostitute leans in a doorway, bored, picking at her nails. A group of slaves, identifiable by their plain tunics and the brands or collars somewhere, carry heavy loads, bundles of cloth, baskets of produce, led by a well-dressed overseer. A street preacher, probably a follower of one of the Eastern mystery religions,
stands on a box proclaiming salvation through some god you've never heard of. Most people ignore him. A few stop to listen. One man heckles. The preacher doesn't miss a beat. Children dart through the crowd, playing some kind of chase game. One nearly trips you. You stumble, but catch yourself. The kid doesn't even notice. A barber has set up shop on the corner, working under a canvas awning. A man sits on a stool, face lathered, while the barber scrapes away stubble with a bronze razor. A small crowd has gathered, not to watch the shave, but because the barber is also the neighborhood gossip hub. News, rumor, scandal, it all flows through the tonsur's chair. You continue walking, the city unfolding around you like a chaotic, living organism. Rome is not beautiful at this level, not picturesque. It's crowded, dirty, loud, and relentless, but it's alive, pulsing with energy and ambition and desperation and 1,000 small dramas playing out every minute. You're headed to the Forum, the heart of Rome, not because you have business there, not official business anyway, but because that's where the day starts for many Romans. It's where you'll find work, if there's work to be found. It's where you'll hear the news. It's where Rome happens. But first, you need to eat. You stop at a small bakery tucked into the ground floor of another insula. The smell of fresh bread is intoxicating. Inside, loaves are piled on a wooden counter, round and golden, some studded with olives or herbs. A slave works a stone mill in the back, grinding grain, while the baker himself, a stout man with flour dusted across his arms, tends the oven. "How much for a loaf?" you ask, already knowing the answer, but asking anyway. It's part of the ritual. "2 asses," the baker says without looking up. Standard price, not negotiable. You hand him the coins. He hands you a small round loaf, still warm. You tuck it under your arm and leave. Outside, you tear off a piece and chew it. The bread is coarse, made from cheaper flour, but it's filling. It's fuel. That's all that matters. You eat as you walk, part of the endless stream of Romans moving through the city, everyone going somewhere, everyone with something to do. Rome doesn't stop, and neither do you. The Forum Romanum, the beating heart of the empire, the place where laws are made, speeches delivered, business conducted, and gossip exchanged. It's massive, sprawling, and crowded, always crowded. As you approach, the buildings grow grander. The narrow, grimy streets of the Suburra, the working-class district you just left, give way to wider avenues, marble facades, and towering columns. Temples rise on either side, dedicated to gods old and new. Jupiter, Saturn, Vesta, Castor, and Pollux. Their steps are worn smooth by centuries of feet. The Forum itself is an open plaza, paved with stone and surrounded by basilicas, government buildings, monuments, and statues. It's where the Roman Republic was born, where senators once debated, where Julius Caesar was assassinated. Now, under the emperors, it's still the center of civic life, though the real power has shifted to the Palatine Hill, where the emperor's palace looms. But you're not here for history, you're here for work. The Forum is where day laborers gather, hoping to be hired for temporary jobs, construction, loading, hauling, anything that requires a strong back and a willingness to sweat. You're not desperate, not yet, but steady work is hard to come by.
You take what you can get. You make your way to a corner near the Basilica Julia, where a crowd of men has already gathered. Some you recognize, regulars like yourself. Others are new, maybe recently arrived in Rome from the countryside, drawn by the promise of opportunity and finding instead competition. A man stands on a step, surveying the crowd. He's well dressed, a tunic of finer wool, a cloak fastened with a silver brooch. A contractor, someone hired by wealthier men to find labor for their projects. He's looking for workers today. You can tell by the way he's scanning faces, assessing strength, age, sobriety. "I need 10 men," he announces, voice carrying over the crowd. "Strong backs, we're moving stone, temple repairs near the Capitoline. Work until sundown. Pay is 6 sesterces. Not great, but not terrible. A sesterce can buy a modest meal. 6 sesterces is enough to eat today and maybe have something left over. Hands shoot up. Men shout, trying to get his attention. "Me, over here. I'm strong. Worked construction for years." The contractor picks quickly, pointing at men seemingly at random, though you know he's choosing carefully. Too old? No. Too drunk? No. Too weak-looking? No. He wants workers who will last the day without collapsing or causing problems. You raise your hand, but you don't shout. Experience has taught you that desperation reads as weakness. You stand straight, meet his eyes, and wait. He points at you. You're in. Relief washes over you. Work. Today you'll eat. You join the small group of chosen men. Introductions are brief, mostly nods and grunts. You're not here to make friends. You're here to work, get paid, and move on. That's the rhythm of the city. The contractor leads you through the Forum, past the Temple of Saturn, up toward the Capitoline Hill. The streets here are cleaner, quieter, more orderly. Fewer people, more wealth. The buildings are well maintained, their facades freshly painted, their columns gleaming. You pass a litter carried by 4 slaves, curtains drawn to hide the occupant. A wealthy woman, probably, or a senator. Behind the litter walks a retinue, more slaves, a secretary, a bodyguard. They don't look at you. You're invisible to them. Eventually, you reach the worksite, a temple undergoing repairs. Scaffolding clings to the structure. Piles of marble blocks sit nearby, freshly quarried and waiting to be shaped and placed. Tools are scattered around, hammers, chisels, ropes, wooden levers.
A foreman, a grizzled man with arms like tree trunks, gives you and the others a quick rundown. We're moving these blocks to the upper platform. You'll work in teams. Use the ropes and levers. Don't drop anything. Don't hurt yourselves. If you do, you don't get paid. Understand? Everyone nods. No one argues. The rules are clear. You're paired with 3 other men. Together, you approach one of the marble blocks. It's enormous, easily several hundred pounds. Moving it will require coordination, leverage, and a lot of sweat. You position wooden levers under the block. On the count, you and the others push down, lifting the stone slightly. Someone slides a wooden roller underneath. Then slowly, agonizingly, you begin to move it, inch by inch, toward the ramp that leads up to the platform. It's brutal work, the kind that makes your muscles scream and your back feel like it's going to snap. The sun climbs higher, and with it the heat. Sweat drips into your eyes. Your hands blister where you grip the lever. But you keep going, because stopping means not getting paid, and not getting paid means not eating. Around you, the city continues. Priests conduct rituals inside the temple. Merchants haggle in nearby stalls. A group of children watches from a distance, fascinated by the scale of the operation. Life in Rome doesn't pause for your labor. It simply absorbs it. By midday, you've moved 3 blocks. The foreman seems satisfied. He calls for a break, and you collapse in the shade, chest heaving, limbs trembling. Someone passes around a water skin. You drink deeply, the water lukewarm and slightly stale, but it's the best thing you've tasted all day. One of your teammates, a man with graying hair and a missing tooth, leans over. "First time?" "No," you reply. "You?" He laughs, a raspy sound. "I've been doing this for 20 years. My back has been screaming at me for 19 of them." You smile too, tired to laugh. Another man, younger, maybe early 20s, speaks up. "Think we'll finish by sundown?"
The older man shrugs. "Does it matter? They'll pay us either way. Barely." "Better than nothing," you say. "Barely," he repeats. But there's no anger in his voice, just resignation. This is the reality. You work because you have to. You get paid what they decide to pay you. And if you don't like it, there are 10 other men waiting to take your place. The break ends too soon. The foreman shouts, and everyone gets back to work. More blocks, more lifting, more sweat and strain. But as the sun begins its slow descent, you feel something like satisfaction. Not joy, not pride, just the simple, bone-deep knowledge that you've earned your pay today. You've survived. You've contributed in your small way to the empire's endless construction, its relentless hunger to build, expand, and endure. Rome is made of marble and ambition, but it's also made of men like you, anonymous, exhausted, essential. The sun is high, and your stomach is making increasingly aggressive demands. Lunch isn't a formal affair in Rome. There's no designated lunch hour, no meal prep. You eat when you can, where you can, usually standing, usually quickly. The foreman has given you and the other workers a brief break, not out of kindness, but because even he knows that pushing men past their limits without food leads to collapsed workers and costly delays. You wipe the sweat from your face and make your way down from the worksite, back toward the forum. The streets are even more crowded now, the midday rush. Everyone seems to be eating. Rome runs on street food, and the options are everywhere. You pass a thermopolium, the same kind of establishment you saw this morning. The counter is lined with clay jars embedded in stone, each filled with different foods kept warm over a small fire. A slave stirs one of the pots, ladling out portions for customers who eat standing at the counter or take their food to go. You approach and peer into the jars. One holds a thick lentil stew, another a chickpea mash, a third some kind of sausage in a brown sauce. Nothing fancy,
nothing fresh, but it's hot, filling, and cheap. "How much for the stew?" you ask the sleeve working the counter. "2 asses," he replies, barely looking at you. You hand over the coins and receive a wooden bowl filled with steaming lentils mixed with onions, garlic, and a heavy dose of garum, the fish sauce that Romans consider essential seasoning. It's salty, pungent, and strangely addictive. There's no seating. You eat standing at the counter, shoveling the stew into your mouth with a wooden spoon. It's hot, almost too hot, and it scalds your tongue. But you don't care. It's food. Next to you, a man in a similar tunic eats from a bowl of chickpeas, muttering to himself about the price of rent. On your other side, a woman with a basket of herbs eats bread dipped in olive oil, efficient and silent. No one talks. Eating is a transaction, not a social event. Fill your stomach. Get back to work. That's the rhythm. You finish quickly, hand the bowl back to the slave, and move on. Your stomach is full, at least for now. That's enough. As you walk, you pass other food vendors. A man sells roasted chestnuts from a small brazier. Another offers skewers of grilled meat, probably pork, definitely questionable. A woman with a basket of herbs sells fresh fruit, apples, pears, grapes, luxuries you can't afford. There are bakeries on nearly every corner, their ovens working non-stop to feed the city's endless hunger for bread. Some offer plain loaves, others stuffed with cheese, olives, or honey. The smell is intoxicating.
You pass a wine shop, a small establishment with amphoras stacked against the walls. Wine in Rome is cheap and ubiquitous. Even the poorest Romans drink it, though it's usually heavily watered. Drinking undiluted wine is considered barbaric, something only Germans and other uncivilized types do. You consider stopping for a cup, but you decide against it. You still have half a day of work ahead, and wine, even watered, makes you sluggish. You'll save it for evening. Instead, you buy a small bunch of grapes from a street vendor. 3 asses, expensive, but you've been craving something sweet. You eat them as you walk, spitting the seeds into the gutter. The streets are a symphony of food. Vendors shout, grills sizzle, pots bubble. The smell of baking, frying, roasting, and fermenting fills the air. Rome eats constantly, a city of 1,000,000 mouths, all demanding to be fed. And the food? It's not gourmet, it's not carefully sourced or artisan crafted. It's functional, cheap, accessible, but it's also surprisingly diverse. Wheat from Egypt, olive oil from Spain, wine from Gaul, spices from the East. The entire empire funnels its resources into Rome's belly. As you make your way back to the worksite, you pass a taberna, a tavern where men sit on benches, drinking wine, eating olives, and arguing about chariot races, the blues versus the greens, the 2 main racing factions whose rivalry borders on religious fervor. One man insists the blues are invincible, another swears the greens have the better horses. Voices rise, someone slams a cup on the table, but it's all in good fun, probably. You keep walking. The break is almost over, and the foreman doesn't tolerate lateness. But as you walk, you realize something. You're not hungry anymore.
For the first time today, your stomach isn't a gnawing void. You've eaten, you've had water, you've tasted grapes. In Rome, that's a good day.
You return to the worksite, and the afternoon stretches ahead, long and grueling. The marble blocks seem heavier now, your muscles more reluctant. The sun beats down without mercy, and the shade is scarce. But you push through, because you have to, because that's what Romans do. They endure. As you strain against another lever, sweat dripping, back aching, you think about tonight, when the work is done, when you'll collect your pay, when you'll return to your insula, exhausted but satisfied. For now, though, there's only this, the stone, the heat, the work, and somewhere in the distance, the city roars on. The afternoon wears on, each hour heavier than the last. The marble blocks don't get lighter. Your body doesn't get stronger. If anything, every lift, every push, every coordinated heave feels like it's pulling something loose inside you. But you continue. The other men continue. The foreman watches, arms crossed, occasionally barking instructions or insults. It's hard to tell the difference. Move faster. Keep it steady. You there, put your back into it, not your mouth. Someone stumbles, a younger man, barely out of his teens, who's clearly not used to this kind of labor. He loses his grip on the lever, and the marble block shifts suddenly. For a moment, everyone freezes, afraid the stone will roll back and crush someone. But it's settled, safe, and the foreman just shakes his head in disgust. Careful, boy. Stone doesn't care if you're tired. It'll kill you just the same. The young man nods, pale, shaken. He grips the lever again, this time with white knuckles. You've seen accidents before. Crushed hands, broken bones. Once a man was killed when a rope snapped and a block fell. His family got nothing. No compensation, no apology. Just a body and a space that was filled the next day by someone else. That's the risk. That's the trade. Your labor for their coin. Your safety for their buildings. And Rome keeps building. By mid-afternoon, your hands are raw, blistered where the wood has rubbed the skin away. You've wrapped them in strips of cloth torn from the hem of your tunic, but it doesn't help much. Every grip sends a sharp sting up your arms. Your back throbs, a deep, dull ache that radiates from your spine outward. You've learned to move carefully, to lift with your legs, but it's not always possible. Sometimes you just have to muscle through, and your body pays the price. But you're not alone in your suffering. Every man here is hurting. You can see it in their faces, in the way they move, in the grim set of their jaws. But no one complains. Complaining doesn't make the stone lighter. It just makes you look weak. One of the older workers, the man with the missing tooth, catches your eye and gives a small, knowing nod. Solidarity. You're all in this together, at least for today. As the sun begins its descent toward the horizon, the foreman finally calls it. Enough! That's the day. Relief floods through you, so intense it's almost dizzying. You drop the lever, step back, and just breathe. Your hands tremble. Your legs feel like they might give out. But you're done. The work is finished. You've survived another day. The foreman gathers the workers and pulls out a leather pouch.
One by one, he counts out coins, placing them into each man's outstretched hand. When he reaches you, he drops 6 sesterces into your palm. They're warm from being in the pouch, and they feel heavier than they should. "Good work," the foreman grunts. "It's the closest thing to praise you'll get." You nod, tuck the coins into your belt pouch, and turn to leave. The other men disperse quickly, heading in different directions, back to their own corners of the city.
You make your way down the Capitoline Hill, back toward the Forum. The streets are quieter now, the midday rush over, the evening not yet begun. This is the lull, the brief pause between work and night. Your body aches, but there's a satisfaction beneath the pain. You worked, you earned, you survived. Tomorrow you'll wake up and do it again, but tonight you have coin, food, and a roof over your head. For a Roman plebeian, that's a victory. As you walk, you pass a small shrine tucked into the corner of a building. It's dedicated to Mercurius, Mercury, the god of merchants, travelers, and luck. Someone has left a small offering, a few coins and a piece of bread. You pause, reach into your pouch, and pull out one of your 6 sesterces. You place it at the base of the shrine, a small prayer, a gesture of thanks. Not because you're particularly devout, but because in Rome you take every bit of help you can get, divine or otherwise. Then you continue walking, the city swallowing you once more into its endless churning life. By the time you make your way back toward your insula, the day has shifted into evening. The light is softer now, golden and forgiving. The heat has faded, replaced by a more comfortable warmth. The streets are still busy, but the energy has changed, less frantic, more social. This is when Rome comes alive in a different way. Work is done, stomachs are full, or at least no longer empty, and people step out to see and be seen, to gossip, to gamble, to drink. You're tired, bone tired, but you're not ready to go home yet. The thought of climbing those narrow stairs, of sitting alone in that small room, it doesn't appeal. Not yet. So you do what many Romans do at the end of the day. You head to the baths. The public baths, or thermae, are one of Rome's greatest democratic institutions. Rich and poor, citizen and slave, all bathe together. Well, not exactly together. There are separate hours or sections for women, and the wealthier patrons have private bathing times or their own facilities. But for the most part, the baths are a great equalizer. Naked, covered in water and steam, everyone looks more or less the same. You head to a small bathhouse near your insula. Nothing fancy, not the grand imperial baths like those built by Trajan or Caracalla, massive complexes with libraries, gardens, and gymnasiums. This is a neighborhood establishment, modest but functional. The entrance fee is minimal, just an ass or 2. You pay the attendant, a bored-looking slave, and step inside. The first room is the apodethrium, the changing room. Stone benches line the walls, and small niches are carved into the stone for storing clothes. You strip off your tunic, sandals, and belt, folding them and placing them in one of the niches. Theft is common, so you keep your coin pouch with you, tucked into a small cloth you tie around your wrist. Naked now, you move into the next room, the tepidethrium, the warm room. The air is pleasantly heated, not too hot, just enough to start loosening your muscles.
A few other men are here, sitting on benches, chatting quietly. You nod to a familiar face, a man who lives on the same floor of your insula. "Long day?" he asks. "Marble blocks," you reply. He winces in sympathy. "I was hauling grain sacks. My back is screaming." "Mine too."
A moment of shared suffering. Then he stands. "I'm heading to the caldarium. Want to join?" "In a moment." He nods and moves on. You sit for a bit, letting the warmth seep in, feeling the tension in your shoulders begin to ease. Eventually you stand and move to the caldarium, the hot room. The air here is intense, almost oppressive. Steam rises from a large pool of hot water, heated by an underground furnace system called a hypocaust. The air is thick, damp, and smells faintly of sulfur and sweat. You step carefully into the hot water, hissing as it touches your skin. It's almost too hot, but you ease in, letting your body adjust. Once you're submerged up to your shoulders, you close your eyes and just breathe. This is why you came. This moment of heat and stillness, of muscles relaxing, of pain fading. It's not luxury, it's necessity. Around you, other men soak, talk, or simply sit in silence. Conversations drift through the steam. Politics, gossip, complaints. Someone mentions a new edict from the emperor, something about grain distribution. Another complains about his landlord, a common theme. A third tells a joke, crude and loud, and a few men laugh. You don't join in. You just soak, savoring the warmth. After a while, you haul yourself out of the hot pool and move to the frigidarium, the cold room. There's a plunge pool here, filled with cold water. You've learned that alternating hot and cold helps with sore muscles. You take a breath and plunge in. The shock is immediate, breath-stealing. But you stay under for a few seconds, then surface, gasping, skin tingling. Alive. That's what it feels like. Alive. You climb out, water streaming off your body, and grab a strigil, the curved metal scraper. You run it over your arms, legs, chest, removing the oil, sweat, and grime that's accumulated over the day. Some bathhouses have slaves who do this for you, but here you do it yourself. Once you're clean, truly clean for the first time all day, you dry off with a rough linen towel and head back to the changing room. You dress slowly, savoring the feeling of clean skin against fabric. As you leave the bathhouse, stepping back into the evening air, you feel renewed. Not fully rested, that will take a full night's sleep, and even then you'll wake sore. But you feel human again. And that, in Rome, is a luxury in itself. Evening in Rome is when the city shifts gears. The formal business of the day is done. The courts are closed. The temples are quiet. But the streets, they're just waking up. You make your way through the narrow alleys, the last light of the sun casting long shadows. Shops are closing, wooden shutters pulled down and locked. But taverns and popine, small food and drink establishments, are opening up,
lanterns lit, tables set out. This is when Romans socialize. Not in private homes, those are too small, too cramped, but in public spaces, the streets, the squares, the taverns. Life in Rome is lived in public. You spot a popina you've been to before, a small place tucked between a cobbler's workshop and a potter's stall. A few tables are set outside, and inside you can see a small counter, shelves lined with amphorae of wine, and a brazier for warming food. You take a seat at one of the outdoor tables, rough wood worn smooth by years of use. A server, a young woman with her hair tied back, approaches. "Wine?" she asks, not bothering with prelatories. She's seen you before. "Watered, and bread, if you have it." She nods and disappears inside.
You sit back, watching the street. A couple walks by, arm in arm, laughing at some private joke. A group of young men, probably apprentices, swagger past, loud and full of themselves. An old man shuffles along, leaning heavily on a stick. The server returns with a clay cup of wine and a small loaf of bread. You hand her a few coins. She pockets them and moves on to the next table. You sip the wine. It's cheap, rough, heavy on the vinegar notes, but it's wet and it's alcoholic, and after a day like today, that's all that matters. The bread is coarse but fresh enough. You tear off pieces and chew slowly, savoring the simple pleasure of eating without hurry, without labor looming over you. At the next table, two men are playing dice, their voices rising and falling as they win and lose small bets. Gambling is technically illegal in Rome, except during certain festivals, but no one enforces the law. Dice games are everywhere, in taverns, on street corners, even in the forum.
You watch them for a moment, tempted to join. But you've lost money on dice before, more than you could afford. Tonight, you'll keep your coin. Instead, you just sit, drink, and watch the city. This is the rhythm of Roman life. Work until your body gives out. Eat, bathe, drink, talk, repeat. It's not glamorous. It's not the life of senators or poets, but it's your life. And tonight, with the wine warming your belly and the worst of the day's pain fading, it doesn't feel so bad. A man at a nearby table starts singing, a bawdy song about a soldier and a barmaid. Others join in, voices blending in drunken harmony. You smile despite yourself. This is Rome, chaotic, dirty, exhausting, alive. And for better or worse, it's home. As the evening deepens into night, the streets of Rome take on a different character. The crowds thin, shops are shuttered, the respectable citizens retreat to their homes, and the city's underbelly emerges. You finish your wine and decide it's time to head back. Walking alone at night in Rome is risky. Crime is rampant. Muggers, pickpockets, and gangs roam the streets, especially in the poorer districts. The vigiles, Rome's night watch and fire brigade, do their best, but they're spread thin, and response times are slow. You keep your hand on your coin pouch, tucked securely under your tunic. You walk quickly, but not too quickly. Running draws attention. You want to look confident,
purposeful, not worth the trouble. The streets are darker now. Few public lights exist. Some wealthier homes have lanterns outside, and the occasional torch burns at a street corner. But most of the city is lit only by moonlight and the faint glow from windows. You pass a group of men huddled in an alley, talking in low voices. You don't look at them. They don't look at you. An unspoken agreement. Mind your business, and I'll mind mine. A cat darts across your path, chasing something. A rat, probably. Rome is full of both. You hear a scream in the distance, short and sharp. It cuts off abruptly. You don't investigate. You keep walking. In Rome, you learn quickly that some things are not your problem. Finally, you reach your insula. The building looms dark and silent. Most of the residents are inside, settling in for the night. You climb the stairs, careful on the uneven steps, and reach your floor. Your room is as you left it, small, sparse, yours. You light your clay oil lamp, a simple vessel with a wick. The flame is small but warm, casting flickering shadows on the walls. You sit on your bed, pulling off your sandals and rubbing your sore feet. Your body aches everywhere. Your hands are blistered. Your back throbs, but you're here. You're safe. You lie down, pulling the thin blanket over yourself. The straw mattress rustles beneath you, and you adjust, trying to find a comfortable position. Through the thin wall, you hear your neighbor coughing again. Below, a baby cries. Someone shouts, angry about something. The building creaks and settles, the sounds of hundreds of lives stacked on top of each other. You close your eyes. Today you woke before dawn. You worked until your muscles screamed. You ate. You bathed. You drank. You survived. Tomorrow you'll do it again. Because you're Roman, and Romans endure. The lamp flickers. The city outside hums softly, never truly silent. And slowly, finally, you drift into sleep. One quiet day in the Roman Empire.
But before we close, let's take a wider view. Because your day, as exhausting and unremarkable as it might have seemed, is part of something larger. You're not just an individual struggling to survive. You're a thread in a vast tapestry, a single note in a symphony that spans continents and centuries. The Roman Empire, at its height, was home to somewhere between 50 and 70 million people. That's more than 1/5 of the entire global population at the time. And most of those people lived lives very much like yours, not in palaces, not draped in silk, but in crowded insulae, working brutal jobs, eating simple food, and hoping to see another sunrise. The empire you're part of stretches from the misty hills of Britain to the sun-scorched deserts of Egypt, from the Rhine and Danube rivers in the north to the edge of the Sahara in the south, from the Atlantic coast of Hispania to the borders of Parthia in the east. It's held together by roads, over 250,000 miles of them,
paved and engineered to last centuries, by aqueducts bringing fresh water from mountains to cities, by laws codified and enforced, creating a legal framework that will influence Western civilization for millennia, by legions, disciplined and deadly, keeping the peace through overwhelming force.
And by people like you. The laborers, the merchants, the bakers, the weavers, the street vendors, the anonymous masses who build, feed, and sustain this colossal machine. Your day might have been quiet, but multiply it by 1 million, by 10 million, by 50 million, and suddenly you see the empire not as monuments and emperors, but as an ocean of human effort, flowing endlessly, generation after generation. You carried marble today. Someone else mined it, transported it, and shaped it. The bread you ate was made from wheat grown in Egypt, shipped across the Mediterranean, unloaded at Ostia, and transported to Rome. The wine you drank came from vineyards in Gaul or Hispania. The olive oil that lit your lamp was pressed in Africa or Greece. Your tunic was woven by someone you'll never meet. The sandals you wore were stitched by hands in some workshop across the city. The coins you earned were minted in a state facility, stamped with the emperor's face, a tiny piece of imperial authority carried in your pouch. Everything you touched today connected you to the empire. Every transaction, every tool, every bite of food, it all flowed through the vast network that is Rome. And yet, despite this interconnectedness, despite being part of something so vast, you remain invisible to history. No one will write your name. No monument will bear your face. No poet will sing of your deeds. But you're not forgotten. Not really. Because every stone building still standing, every road still walked, every aqueduct still admired, was built by people like you. Anonymous, exhausted, essential. The empire doesn't run on emperors. It runs on you. Now, let's talk about what you don't see. The empire beyond your street, beyond your city, beyond your daily grind. Because Rome is vast, and your quiet day is just one of millions unfolding simultaneously across 3 continents. Right now, as you sleep in your insula, a Roman soldier stands watch on Hadrian's Wall in northern Britain, peering into the mist, wondering if tonight the Picts will come raiding. He's cold. He's homesick. He hasn't seen Rome in 5 years. But he stands his post because that's what legionaries do. In Alexandria, a scholar is bent over a papyrus scroll in the great library, copying a Greek philosophical text by lamplight. His fingers are cramped, his eyes ache, but he believes the knowledge he's preserving is worth more than gold. And he's right. In a villa outside Pompeii, a wealthy patrician reclines on a couch surrounded by slaves who serve him wine and delicacies. He complains about taxes and the declining quality of garum. He has no idea that in less than a century, his city will be buried under volcanic ash, frozen in time.
In the deserts of Judea, a group of zealots huddle in a cave, planning resistance against Roman occupation. They speak of freedom, of prophecy, of a coming Messiah. They don't know that their movement will eventually give birth to one of the world's major religions. On the Rhine frontier, a Germanic chieftain watches Roman patrols from across the river. His people have traded with Rome, fought Rome, and learned from Rome. One day, his descendants will overrun the very empire he now fears. But that day is still centuries away. In a marble palace on the Palatine Hill, the emperor himself, Antoninus Pius, reviews reports from across the empire: grain shipments, tax revenues, military dispatches. He's one man trying to manage an empire of millions. He does his best. History will call him one of the good ones.
And in a small village in Gaul, a farmer's daughter tends to her family's vines, singing softly to herself. She doesn't know what Rome is, not really. She's never seen the Colosseum, the Forum, or the Pantheon, but she pays her taxes. She uses Roman coins. She speaks a Latin dialect. Whether she knows it or not, she's Roman too. All of this, all of these lives, interconnected, all part of the same story, the story of an empire that, for a brief moment in human history, brought a kind of order, a kind of peace to a world that had known mostly chaos. It wasn't perfect, far from it. Slavery, inequality, oppression, violence, these were woven into the fabric of Roman life. The empire was built on conquest, maintained through force, and sustained by exploitation. But it was also something remarkable, a system that connected people across impossible distances, that built cities in the wilderness, that brought law to lands that had known none, that created art, literature, and engineering marvels that still inspire awe today. Your quiet day, in the grand scheme, might seem insignificant, but it's part of that story, part of the empire's heartbeat. And when historians look back, when they sift through the ruins and the records, when they try to understand what Rome was, they won't just study the emperors and the battles. They'll try to understand you, the common Roman, the one who lived, worked, and died without ever making the history books. Because you are history, just as much as Caesar or Augustus or Marcus Aurelius. Your labor built the empire. Your taxes funded it. Your sweat, your pain, your quiet persistence, that's what kept Rome alive for over 1,000 years. So rest tonight. Sleep well. You've earned it.
Tomorrow, the city will wake again. The marble will need moving. The grain will need grinding. The empire will need feeding. And you'll be there. One more thread in the tapestry. One more note in the symphony. One more quiet day in the Roman Empire. When you wake the next morning, the cycle begins again. The same cold floor, the same aching body, the same narrow staircase and crowded streets. Rome doesn't change. It doesn't rest. It simply continues, relentless and indifferent. But here's the thing. You adapt, because humans always do. You learn which streets to avoid, which vendors give honest weight, which landlords are crooks and which are merely unpleasant. You build a mental map of the city, not of monuments, but of survival. You know where to find work, which foremen pay fairly, which ones short you and laugh about it. You know which taverns water their wine too much, and which ones might slip a little extra meat into your stew if you're polite. You know the rhythms, when the baths are least crowded, when the markets have the freshest bread, when the streets are most dangerous, when the vigiles are actually patrolling, and when they're asleep in some corner. You learn the people, the old soldier who tells the same stories every day, but sometimes shares his wine, the baker who always has a kind word, the prostitute in the alley who nods at you without judgment, the beggar who used to be a merchant before everything fell apart. These are your people, not friends, not exactly, but fellow travelers, faces in the crowd who are also just trying to get through the day. And slowly, imperceptibly, you become part of the city. Rome absorbs you. You're no longer a new arrival, wide-eyed and overwhelmed. You're a Roman, hardened, pragmatic, cynical maybe, but not broken. You learn to appreciate small things, a good meal, a quiet moment, the sunset turning the Tiber golden, the sound of rain on the roof, a stranger's smile. You learn that happiness here isn't about luxury or comfort. It's about survival. It's about making it through one more day and finding something, anything, worth smiling about. You learn that Rome isn't the marble and monuments. It's the people, the million souls crammed into this impossible city, all struggling, all enduring, all somehow making it work. And you learn that you're stronger than you thought. Your body adapts to the labor. Your hands callous over. Your back stops screaming quite so loud. You learn to carry weight, literal and metaphorical, that you never imagined you could. This is life in the Roman Empire. Not the sanitized version from textbooks, not the epic version from movies, but the real version, the daily grind, the quiet heroism of simply not giving up. And somehow, against all odds, you find meaning in it, not grand meaning, not philosophical enlightenment, but the meaning of a job done, a meal earned, a friend made, a day survived. Because Rome, for all its flaws, for all its cruelty and chaos, does one thing remarkably well. It teaches you how to endure. And endurance, as it turns out, is its own kind of triumph. So you wake up, you get dressed, you step into the street, you face the noise, the smell, the crush of humanity, you work, you eat, you bathe, you drink, you sleep. And tomorrow you do it again. Because that's what Romans do. They endure. Now, let's talk about what happens when you can't work. Because in Rome, there's no safety net, no unemployment benefits, no disability payments, no retirement fund. If you can't work, you don't eat. It's that simple and that terrifying. Illness is common. Infections from injuries, diseases spread through the crowded insulae like wildfire. Dysentery, typhoid, tuberculosis, malaria if you live near the marshes. The plague, though it won't arrive in its most devastating form for another few decades. Roman medicine exists, and some of it is surprisingly advanced, but it's expensive. Physicians cater to the wealthy.
If you're a plebeian, your options are limited. Folk remedies, prayers to Asclepius, the god of healing, or simply toughing it out and hoping your body wins the fight. If you're lucky, you have family, a brother who can help with rent, a sister who brings food, parents who take you in, though they're likely struggling themselves. Family in Rome is everything. It's your social security, your insurance, your support network. If you're unlucky, you're alone. And being alone in Rome, sick and unable to work, is a death sentence. Slow, maybe, but inevitable. Some turn to begging. It's not illegal, though it's hardly dignified. You sit on a street corner, hand outstretched, reciting a formulaic plea. Please, citizen, spare a coin for a veteran of the legions, or mercy for a widow with children to feed. Most people walk past. Some drop a coin or two, not out of generosity, but to earn favor with the gods. Charity in Rome isn't about compassion, it's a transaction. You give to the poor so the gods bless you, or you give to avoid bad luck. Others turn to crime, theft, fraud, prostitution, anything to survive. Rome's streets are full of desperate people making desperate choices. And then there's the grain dole, the cura annone. The state-provided grain distribution is a lifeline for many Romans. If you're a citizen, and not all residents of Rome are, you're entitled to a monthly ration of free grain. Not much, but enough to keep you from starving.
This isn't charity, though. It's politics. Emperors and ambitious politicians use the grain dole to maintain public order. Keep the people fed, and they won't riot. Let them starve, and the city explodes. Bread and circuses, as the poet Juvenal will later write. Give the masses food and entertainment, and they'll tolerate almost anything. The grain dole is distributed at specific locations, massive warehouses near the Tiber. On distribution days, lines stretch for blocks. Thousands of men, women, and children clutching their tessera, small clay or wooden tokens that prove their eligibility. You wait, and wait, and wait. The sun beats down, people shove, tempers flare, fights break out, but you stay in line because you need that grain. When you finally reach the front, a state official checks your tessera, verifies your citizenship, and hands you your ration. Grain, usually wheat, measured out precisely. Enough for one person for about a month if you're careful. You take it, clutching the heavy sack, and head home. You'll grind it yourself using a hand mill, or take it to a public mill. Then you'll bake it into bread, the staple of your diet. It's not much, but it's survival. And in Rome, survival is the ultimate goal. But the grain dole doesn't cover everything. You still need money for rent, for olive oil, for garum, for wine, for clothes. So you work whenever you can. You take any job, no matter how degrading, how exhausting, how dangerous, because the alternative is the street. And on the streets of Rome, life expectancy is measured in weeks, not years. So you fight. Every day you fight. Against hunger, against disease, against despair.
You fight to hold on to your tiny room, your few possessions, your fragile dignity. And somehow, most days, you win. Not by much, but enough.
Let's take a moment to talk about the people you never see, the ones who make your life and everyone's lives in Rome possible, the slaves. Rome runs on slavery. It's not an uncomfortable truth, it's the foundation. Somewhere between 1/3 and 1/2 of Italy's population are slaves. In the city of Rome itself, the number might be even higher. They're everywhere, doing everything. They work in the mines, extracting the gold, silver, and iron that fuel the empire's economy. They labor in the fields, growing the grain that feeds the city. They serve in wealthy households, cooking, cleaning, managing estates. They work in shops, in workshops, in construction. You see them every day, though you might not always register them. The person serving you at the thermopolium, the one hauling water from the aqueduct, the one sweeping the street, slaves. Some are born into slavery, children of slaves inheriting their parents' status. Others are prisoners of war, captured during Rome's endless campaigns of conquest and sold at auction. Still others are debtors, people who fell into financial ruin and sold themselves to survive. Their lives vary wildly. A slave in a wealthy household, educated, trusted, might live relatively well. Good food, comfortable quarters, even a small degree of autonomy. Some are manumitted, freed, either through purchase as a reward for loyal service or in their owner's will. Freedmen can become citizens, though always with the social stain of their past. But most slaves have it far worse. Those in the mines live brutal, short lives, worked literally to death. Those on agricultural estates, latifundia, are treated as expendable tools. Those who displease their masters can be beaten, tortured, or killed with no legal consequences. Slavery in Rome is not the race-based system that will later devastate the Americas. Romans enslave anyone: Gauls, Greeks, Egyptians, Syrians, Britons, Germans, Africans. Skin color doesn't matter. Defeat does. Poverty does. Bad luck does. You, as a plebeian, occupy a strange position. You're free, technically, but you're not much better off than many slaves. You have no political power. You live in squalor. You work back-breaking jobs for barely enough to survive. The main difference? You can't be sold, and your children, if you have any, won't inherit your poverty as a legal status. They'll inherit it as a practical reality, but not as a legal fact. Some plebeians own slaves, not many. Owning a slave is a sign of modest wealth, but some. A household slave, perhaps, to help with chores. It's a strange irony. You struggle to afford food, but you might own another human being. Most plebeians, though, don't own slaves. You can't afford them. You are them in all but name. And yet you don't question the system. Slavery is just how the world works. It's been this way for as long as anyone can remember. The Greeks had slaves. The Egyptians had slaves. Everyone has slaves. To imagine a world without slavery would be like imagining a world without gravity. But the slaves, they question it, at least some of them. History remembers Spartacus,
the gladiator who led a massive slave revolt a couple of centuries ago. He nearly brought Rome to its knees before being crushed. His rebellion terrified the Roman elite, and the punishment was brutal. 6,000 captured slaves were crucified along the Appian Way, a grisly warning. Since then, large-scale revolts are rare, but small acts of resistance continue. Slaves run away, they sabotage their work, they steal, they rebel in quiet, invisible ways.
And you don't think about it much. You have enough problems of your own. But sometimes, late at night, when you hear a slave being beaten in a neighboring insula, when you see the branded face of a runaway, when you pass a slave market and see families torn apart, you feel something. Not enough to act, but something. Because deep down you know the line between you and them is thinner than you'd like to admit. And in Rome, fortunes change quickly. Now let's talk about something Romans love almost as much as they love complaining: spectacle. Because if the grain dole keeps you from starving, spectacle keeps you from rioting. The Colosseum, the Circus Maximus, the theaters, these aren't just entertainment venues, they're pressure valves, they're propaganda. They're where the empire reminds you of its power, its wealth, and its ability to provide. The gladiatorial games are the most famous. Men and occasionally women fighting to the death in the arena. Criminals, slaves, prisoners of war, sometimes volunteers, men desperate enough or glory-hungry enough to risk everything for fame and prize money. The games are brutal, bloody, and wildly popular. You've been, of course. Everyone has. Admission is usually free or very cheap, another gift from the emperor or wealthy sponsors currying favor with the mob. You sit in the upper tiers, the cheap seats, far from the action but still able to see. The wealthy sit below, close to the sand, where they can smell the blood. The emperor has his own box, the pulvinar, elevated and ornate. The day starts with animal hunts, venationes, exotic beasts from across the empire, lions, bears, elephants, crocodiles, even ostriches. They're released into the arena and hunted by trained bestiari. It's chaotic, violent, and the crowd loves it. Then come the executions. Criminals condemned to death are brought out, unarmed, and killed in elaborate theatrical ways, mauled by animals, burned alive, crucified. These aren't just punishments, they're warnings. This is what happens to those who defy Rome. And finally, the main event, the gladiators. They enter the arena in their distinctive armor, each type with its own style. The Murmillo with his fish-crested helmet and large shield, the Retiarius with his net and trident, the Thrax with his curved sword. They salute the emperor. Ave imperator, morituri te salutant. Hail, emperor, those who are about to die salute you. Though, to be fair, not all of them die. Many fights end with one gladiator yielding, and the crowd or the sponsor decides their fate. Thumbs up or thumbs down, or maybe a gesture lost to history. Either way, mercy or death. You cheer, you boo,
You place bets with the man next to you. You eat snacks, nuts, dried fruit, bread sold by vendors working the aisles. You drink watered wine. You get caught up in the roar of the crowd, the thrill of the fight, the primal excitement of watching men risk everything. For a few hours, you forget your aching back, your empty purse, your uncertain future. You're part of something bigger. You're Roman, and Rome is powerful, magnificent, eternal. Or so the games tell you.
The Circus Maximus is another favorite. Chariot racing. Teams of horses, driven by skilled, reckless charioteers, thunder around a massive oval track. The blues, the greens, the reds, the whites. 4 factions, each with fanatical supporters. You're a Greens fan, always have been. Your father was. It's tribal, almost religious. Blues fans are your enemies. You've gotten into more than one drunken brawl over chariot racing. Race day is electric. The circus holds over 150,000 people, maybe more, packed in, screaming, chanting, betting enormous sums on their favorite drivers. The gates open, the horses explode forward, chariots jostle for position, wheels lock, drivers are thrown, horses stumble. It's fast, dangerous, thrilling. Your driver, your green, takes the lead on the final lap. You're on your feet, screaming yourself hoarse. He crosses the finish line, and the crowd erupts. You've won. Well, your team has. You've won nothing, but it feels like victory. This is what Rome offers. Not wealth, not security, but spectacle, distraction, a chance to forget for a moment the weight of existence. And it works, because here you are, hoarse, exhausted, broke, but grinning. Bread and circuses, the Roman formula, and it's kept the empire stable for centuries. As the day winds down and evening returns, you find yourself back in your insula, back in your small room, back to the quiet reality of your life. The spectacle is over. The noise has faded. The city, for a brief moment, is almost calm. You sit on your bed, the same lumpy, uncomfortable bed you woke up in this morning. Your body aches, the same aches as yesterday, as tomorrow, but you're here. You've survived another day.
You think about the empire, about the million invisible threads that connect your tiny life to something vast and incomprehensible. You think about the slaves, the soldiers, the farmers, the merchants, all of them, like you, just trying to get by. You think about the marble buildings, the aqueducts, the roads, built by hands like yours, carried on backs like yours, paid for by sweat like yours. You think about the emperors, distant and divine, making decisions that ripple through millions of lives. You'll never meet one. You'll never even see one, except maybe as a distant figure in a procession surrounded by guards and pageantry. But you're part of his empire. For better or worse, your fate is tied to Rome's. You lie down, pulling the threadbare blanket over yourself. Tomorrow the sun will rise, the city will wake, the cycle will continue. And you'll be there,
one more Roman, one more thread in the tapestry, one more quiet day in an empire that will outlast you by centuries. You close your eyes. The sounds of the city drift through your window. Distant voices, a dog barking, somewhere a baby crying. Rome never truly sleeps, and neither, it seems, do you. Not deeply, not peacefully, but enough. Enough to face another day, enough to endure, because that's what Romans do. They endure. The lamp flickers and dies, plunging the room into darkness. And in that darkness, you sleep. One quiet day in the Roman Empire.